The night was still clinging to the land when Eli Turner rose from his narrow bed, the cold biting through the thin walls of his broken-down ranch house, a place so poor that even the wind felt bold enough to walk straight through it. And as he stepped outside, the stars above, New Mexico's endless plains, seemed closer than the earth beneath his boots, reminding him that he owned almost nothing except this stubborn land, a tired horse, and a heart that refused to harden despite years of hunger, loss, and quiet humiliation. Because Eli Turner was the kind of man the West often crushed but never quite managed to break, a widower with no children, no hired hands, and no neighbors close enough to hear him shout if trouble came, surviving on a few scrawny cattle, and the belief that kindness was not weakness but a form of courage stronger than any rifle. Years earlier, when the railroad bypassed his land and the big ranchers swallowed everything around him, Eli stayed, fixing fences with wire he found abandoned, drinking coffee so thin it barely remembered the bean, and praying that tomorrow would be kinder than yesterday. And on one such tomorrow, months before the dawn that would change everything, Eli found a young Apache boy collapsed near his water trough, lips cracked, skin burned by the sun, an arrow wound in his shoulder crudely wrapped with cloth. And though every warning the frontier ever whispered screamed at him to turn away, to pretend he saw nothing, Eli knelt anyway, lifted the boy gently, gave him water drop by drop, cleaned the wound with shaking hands, and fed him the last of his beans without once asking his name, because he believed mercy didn't need permission. For 3 days the boy rested in Eli's barn, guarded by silence and fear, and on the 4th morning, the boy stood, placed his hand over his heart, and vanished back into the desert without a word, leaving behind only a faint footprint and a feeling Eli could not explain, a feeling that his small act had been noticed by something larger than himself. Weeks passed, then months, and the frontier remained cruel as ever. Cattle thieves struck nearby ranches, soldiers marched through with dust and arrogance, and rumors spread of Apache bands moving like ghosts across the land. But Eli kept to himself, fixing his fence, feeding his horse, and offering water to any traveler who asked, never knowing that stories move faster than men in the desert, and that among the Apache, kindness given without demand was never forgotten. Then came the dawn, a dawn so quiet it felt wrong, when Eli stepped outside expecting only the usual loneliness, and instead saw the horizon darken, not with storm clouds, but with people, hundreds upon hundreds of riders emerging from the pale light, their silhouettes filling the plains, horses moving in disciplined silence, feathers and rifles catching the first breath of sun, until Eli's knees weakened and his heart thundered, because there were not dozens, not hundreds, but what looked like 1,000 Apache warriors riding toward his ranch. And in that moment, standing alone with no weapon in his hands, Eli understood how small one life truly was, and he did not run, because there was nowhere to go. So he stood, head in hand, as the ground itself seemed to tremble beneath the weight of approaching history. The riders stopped just beyond his fence, and a path opened as an older Apache chief rode forward, his eyes sharp, his presence calm, and behind him stepped the same boy Eli had once saved, now standing tall, pride in his posture, and through a translator the chief spoke, telling Eli that the boy was his grandson, wounded during a skirmish, left for dead, saved not by medicine or magic, but by the compassion of a man with nothing to gain, and that among the Apache, such a debt could not remain unpaid. The chief explained that soldiers planned to seize the land at sunrise, to burn the ranch as a warning, believing Eli to be hiding Apache scouts, and that the 1,000 warriors standing there had come not for war, but for protection, to stand between a kind man and an unjust world. And as the sun finally broke free of the horizon, soldiers appeared in the distance, rifles ready, confidence heavy, only to freeze at the sight of 1,000 Apache warriors lined across the plains, silent, unmovable, a wall built not of stone but of honor. And in that frozen moment, history bent, negotiations replaced gunfire, and the soldiers withdrew, unwilling to start a war over one poor rancher. When the dust settled, the Apache did not take Eli's land, his cattle, or his freedom, but instead helped him rebuild his fences, dig a deeper well, and leave him with enough supplies to last the winter. And before they departed, The chief placed his hand on Eli's shoulder and said that the land now remembered him. That kindness planted once could grow into protection greater than any army. And as the riders vanished back into legend, Eli Turner stood alone again. But the loneliness was gone, replaced by the quiet knowledge that even the smallest act of humanity could echo across the plains and summon 1,000 souls at dawn. And if this story moved you, if you believe that courage, kindness, and forgotten legends still matter, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel Wild West Dairies, where the untold stories of the frontier live on. Because every legend deserves to be remembered, and every act of goodness deserves to be told.